Hello. Welcome back to Wednesday's Weekly. My name is Elizabeth, and today I'm going to be going over my A to Z reading challenge, TBR. If you're unfamiliar with this, it just means reading a book that begins with every letter of the alphabet. I've already gone through and picked out the books that I would like to read to help me complete this challenge, so those are the books I'm going to be going over with you guys today. Let me know down in the comments if any of you do any kind of annual reading challenge. I think these types of challenges are so much more fun than just trying to hit an annual books read goal. I also think they're way less stressful. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoy today's video. Let's get into it. For the letter A, I have Asunder by Kirsten Hall. This is a newer release. I believe it was just published about 6 months ago. This is a blend of fantasy and horror. From the reviews that I've read, it sounds very character-driven, and I'm going to take an educated guess that fans of the Locked Tomb series are going to really enjoy this one. But I like to go into my novels as blind as possible. Yeah, I try to not know too much, so we're going into this one pretty blind. For the letter B, I have Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil by V.E. Schwab. This is one of my most highly anticipated new releases of the year. I love V.E. Schwab so much. She is an auto-buy author for me. All that I know about this book is that it follows 3 women across 3 different time periods, and I think they might all be vampires. Honestly, I don't want to know more than that, but I am so stoked for it. For C, I plan to read Children of Time by Adrian Tchaikovsky. This is a highly praised, highly recommended book. It won the Arthur C. Clarke Award for Best Novel in 2016, I think. I seem to adore the first human contact with aliens trope, and this book definitely has that. I'm also pretty sure that the aliens in this book are sentient spiders, which I love. Any kind of sentient being in a fantasy or sci-fi novel, so sign me up. I've also never read any Tchaikovsky, and I feel like this book is a good place to start with his work, but let me know if I should be starting somewhere else. For the letter D, I have Dawn by Octavia Butler. This is another sci-fi novel that follows a female main character named Lilith who wakes up on a space shuttle after being saved by aliens from some kind of catastrophic event that has taken place on Earth. So it's an alien space shuttle that she wakes up on, and then some weird stuff, I think, starts to happen. But I like weird. Weird is like a buzzword for me. So this one is definitely getting read. All right, time for the letter E, my favorite letter in the alphabet. I am going with East of Eden by John Steinbeck. This year I am focused on diversifying my genres, so it's time to sprinkle in some classics. Also, Nick from Books Are Sick has influenced me heavily on this one. For F, I will be reading Fool's Quest by Robin Hobb. This is the first book in the final trilogy of the Realm of the Elderlings. And guys, I am sad. I'm sad just thinking about this. I don't want this story to end. I am not ready for it to be over, but it is going to happen this year. I will be finishing the Realm of the Elderlings this year. I might drag my feet on it a little bit, and it may not happen till the very end of the year. Who knows? But yeah, this one's gonna be emotional. For G, I have Going Postal by Sir Terry Pratchett. Yes, if you did not know, Terry Pratchett was knighted for his services to literature. Very cool fact, very cool thing. Going Postal is part of Terry Pratchett's casual 41 book series in the Discworld, but don't let that number intimidate you, because the books are broken up into collections and you can really start anywhere with like a first book within any of the collections. So I started with Mort, which is book 1 in the Death collection. Oh my gosh. Personally, I mean, I'm biased because that's where I started. I think that's a great starting point. Death is literally a character in this series, and he seems to constantly be going through some kind of existential crisis, which relatable. And yeah, I just love it so much. I've read the first 2 books in the Death collection, and then I've read Equal Rights, which is book 1 in the Witches series. So yeah, you can kind of bounce around, and part of me wants to continue reading the rest of the Death collection books, but I do want to experience more of this world. So all of the stories take place in the Disc world. If you are not familiar, Disc world is a world that is set on a literal disc, a flat disc that is sitting on top of 4 elephants who are sitting on top of a giant turtle. But yeah, I want to experience more of this world, so I'm thinking going postal. That seems to be a very popular fan favorite. Guards is another one that everyone seems to love, and it also starts with G. But I don't know, for some reason I'm leaning towards going postal. We'll see. It'll be one of the 2. Moving on, for the letter H, I have House of Frank by Kay Sinclair. This follows a witch who has suffered a loss, I believe. I think she has lost her sister in the very beginning of this book. So this is kind of a like mix of cozy fantasy that covers grief. I have heard that this book will make you weep, but it will also feel very comforting. Personally, I love books about grief. Like the Death collection is all about grief. I laughed and I cried. Yeah, I really enjoy books like that. So I am looking forward to this one. I've heard nothing but great things. For J, I will be reading James by Percival Everett. I'm actually reading this with my book club on Fable next month in February. I am so looking forward to this book. I have not heard a single negative review of this book. I've not even heard a like meh review of this. Everyone just seems to sing this book's praises. This is a Huckleberry Finn retelling of sorts, told from the perspective of Jim. I don't think that you have to have read Huckleberry Finn. Actually, I know you don't have to have read Huckleberry Finn to read James, but it might be good to be familiar with the story of Huckleberry Finn. I'm really excited about it. I am headed to the bookstore as soon as I finish this video, actually, to pick that book up. For the letter K, I will be reading Calabasas by R.F. Kuang. This is another one of my very highly anticipated new releases of this year. I believe it's like dark academia. Some students are going to save a professor in the underworld. They're going to hell. I don't know. I actually have a friend who just received one of the 200 arcs. Very, very special. She just finished reading it and said she thinks it is her favorite R.F. Kuang book thus far, and she's read all of them. She's a massive R.F. Kuang fan. So that's a great sign. I've also been told there are a ton of historical references and literary references, which is something that kind of lights me up. Like, I know that you need to have read Dante's Inferno before reading this book because there are just so many references apparently in Calabasas. And I love that because there are also a ton of references to Dante's Inferno in Sun Eater, which I will be, doing my Sun Eater reread later this year. So Dante's Inferno is a book that I just need to read for a multitude of reasons. For L, I plan to read Lonesome Dove by Larry McMurtry. I said I was diversifying my genres this year, so I feel like I've got to throw a classic Western into the mix. I also own a first edition copy of this book that my mom found at a used bookstore. So I feel like I have to read this. Yeah, it also won the Pulitzer Prize in 1986, so I can't go wrong here. For M, I have Musashi, written by, I'm going to butcher this, I'm so sorry, Eiji Yoshikawa. Hopefully that wasn't too terrible. This is a Japanese epic historical fiction novel that takes place immediately following the events of the Battle of Sekigahara. Hopefully I didn't butcher that either. It is a battle that happens at the very end of the book Shogun by James Clavell. This is supposedly like the Gone with the Wind of Japanese novels. So I am very, very intrigued. And I think I was going to read Shogun this year, but I think I've decided I'm going to skip reading the novel. I did watch the book. I did watch the show on, was it on Hulu last year? I watched the show and loved it, really enjoyed it. That's why I initially wanted to go back and read the book, but I think I've decided I'm going to skip Shogun and I'm going to read Musashi instead. For the letter N, I have Nivola by Paolo Bacigalupi. This is the first book of a new series. It was released last year, and this has been described as kind of a mix between The Sopranos and The Godfather, but make it fantasy with at least one dragon, or there's a dragon eye. There's a dragon eye on the cover of the book. That's really all that I know about it. I'm not familiar with Paolo Bacigalupi at all, but I do have one friend who I trust who read it and has raved about it. So I'm really curious about this one. For O, I have Ocean Skidori by Elaine E. Cho. This is a Korean-inspired space opera, which I've never read a book like that before. Also, the cover is stunning, and I actually own a physical copy of this book, so I'm really interested in reading this. For the letter P, I have Priest of Bones by Peter McLean. All that I really know about this is that it is the first book of a grimdark fantasy series. That's really all that I know. So, moving on. For the letter Q, I plan to read The Queen of the Damned by Anne Rice. I read The Vampire Lestat last year. I really enjoyed it, and I read Interview with the Vampire years ago. So it is time for me to complete the Vampire Chronicles. This is a trilogy, and I have heard that The Queen of the Damned is a very climactic end to this story, to Lestat's story. So very much looking forward to this one. I will probably be reading this in October for spooky season. For R, I plan to read Red Rabbit by Alex Grecian. This is another one where it's out of my normal genre. This is like horror western vibes. I've been told it's kind of like Red Country by Joe Abercrombie, but make it horror. I think it takes place in Kansas. And again, that's really all that I know. It comes highly recommended, so I'm going to check it out. We're dipping our toes into the horror genre this year. I'm a little bit scared, but we're going to do it. Horror and Western, for that matter. Both of those genres kind of intimidate me. Like, I don't know. We'll see. We'll figure it out. For S, I will be reading Speaking Bones, the final book in the Dandelion Dynasty series by Ken Liu. I am so excited to get to this book. Everyone who I know who has read this says it is by far the best book in the series. I love nothing more than the final book in a series to be the best book out of the series. So yeah, I'm super stoked. I recently completed The Wall of Storms book 2. Next month I will be reading The Veiled Throne book 3, and then hopefully in March I'll be reading Speaking Bones. And yeah, this story is wild. The scope is massive. It just kind of keeps evolving and shifting into something else. So I think if you have just read The Grace of Kings, you really have no idea what to expect for what's coming, because everything seemed to change in The Wall of Storms, and I have a feeling things are going to continue to change and just get crazy and epic as the story progresses. For T, I plan to read Theft of Swords by Michael J. Sullivan. I've not read any Michael J. Sullivan, and this is a series that is constantly being recommended to me, that has been on my TBR for years and years, and the book was actually gifted to me by a friend over the holidays, so I feel like I have no excuse. I've got to read it this year, and yeah, I'm interested in reading this. I think this is kind of a classic fantasy series. For you, I have Unsold by Will White. This is book 1 in the Cradle series. I believe there are 12 books total in this series, but I think they are rather short novels. Actually, I may have just pulled that out of my ass. I have no idea how long the books are, but I have heard that they're kind of like popcorn, easy, digestible books to read. I also think, I could be making this up as well, but I'm pretty sure they are working on animated series, or maybe it's live action. I want to say it's animated. This seems like a series that would, if it were to be adapted, it would be animated. Anyways, I think it's getting adapted. But again, I could be wrong, so we'll figure that out later. Later Elizabeth is here to let you guys know there is indeed an animated adaptation of the Cradle series in the works. The Kickstarter campaign has been fully funded, and the author, Will White, has partnered with Jay Oliva to bring this project to life. Very cool. Love to see it. Congrats, Will. For the letter V, I have The Vanished Birds by Simon Jimenez. You might be familiar with Simon Jimenez if you have read or heard of The Spear Cuts Through Water. I am super, super interested in The Vanished Birds. I believe it is more of a sci-fi novel. Again, I'm going into this one pretty blind, but I've seen great reviews for it, so we will see. For W, I have Watermoon by Samantha Soto Yumbao. I have so many friends who have read this book, and all of them rave about it. It is described as Studio Ghibli meets Aaron Morgenstern. I love both of those things, so I'm really looking forward to this one, and I think I will be reading this book pretty soon. Also, the cover is stunning. Okay, now we're getting to the tricky ones, X, Y, and Z. Really, Y I have a good one for, but X and Z I had a difficult time with. So for X, I'm cheating just slightly. Dawn by Octavia Butler, the book that I mentioned earlier for the letter D, that is a trilogy, and the trilogy is called the Xenogenesis series, which starts with an X. So I have put either book 2 or 3 for the letter X in that spot. It's Adulthood Rights, I believe, is book 2, and Imago is book 3 of the series. I would like to read this entire trilogy this year, so yeah, I'm just gonna slate one of those books into my letter X spot. For Y, I have Young Mungo. This has been comped like similar to A Little Life, so I think it's going to be super tragic. I think there are going to be a lot of tears, but again, I'm going to go in pretty blind and probably get my heart ripped to shreds. And finally, the last and most difficult letter, Z. I really had a hard time coming up with a book that I was somewhat interested in reading for this letter. The only thing that I came up with was Zodiac Academy, which I'm really not even interested in reading. I also have like no idea really what Zodiac Academy is about. I think that it's a romantasy series. I don't know. Am I going to be reading book 1 of Zodiac Academy just for this challenge? Or I was thinking, I don't know, is there a manga series that I don't know about that starts with the letter Z? There was also a book about Zelda Fitzgerald that I saw that I might try out. Yeah, Z is kind of a big question mark. Yeah, That's it for me today, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know if you have read any of the books that I mentioned today. I would love to know your thoughts. And if you have any book recommendations, specifically for the letter Z, I would greatly appreciate it. I hope you all are having a wonderful day, and I will see you next week.